Enjoy the podcast
What is up, everyone? Welcome to Mock Draft Monday. And I am joined by one of my favorite people, Zach. You know him, you love him, Payo Time. Even though he's a Rams YouTube content creator, we still love him. And you apparently are enjoying the new theme song.
Joe, well, that was amazing. You had shared that with me beforehand, but it's even like it grows on me. That is such a clutch intro. If you don't like and subscribe after seeing that, folks, I don't know what's wrong with you.
Right. Thank you. So I want to do a couple shout outs. Now, if you're getting in here late, you missed the intro, maybe we'll play it a little bit later just for people to see it.
Restart the stream.
Yeah, just restart the screen, right? I want to do a couple shout outs though, because first of all,
of course,
Mikey Desert Cardinal. What's
Mikey.
up, brother Joe? Okay, let me give you a little backstory on that new intro, okay? Mikey sent me a message and he wrote the lyrics for that. He sent me a message of himself singing that a cappella. He was like, hey, Joe, I put this together for you. I'm like, dude, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And if you know me, you see I've got my guitars. I've been playing music for a while. That was not me recording that. But I played in bands, and I have a lot of friends who play music. And I have a long time friend, one of my closest friends who I've known for like 25 years plus, who I've played in bands with, a good dude named Doug, who I reached out to. And Doug has recording equipment, records his own music. And I've played in bands with him. I know Doug can sing and all that great stuff. So I'm like, hey, Doug, you want to do something fun? He's like, yeah, what's up? So like, hey, check out this song that Mikey sent to me. Do you think you could use your, music wizardry and record a version of that? And I asked him to lean into the 80s butt rock kind of guitar solo and everything. And there's a longer version of that that's like a minute long with that guitar solo extended. And I will play that version, the music when we get out of here over the channel member shout outs. So yeah, so huge shout out to Mikey. Mikey, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to message me your mailing address and your t-shirt size, because I'm going to send you a TCR t-shirt for that, man. So send me your mailing address, your t-shirt size. I'm going to send you a t-shirt, brother. I appreciate you. My friend Doug, I don't know if he's in here listening, but Doug, I've already thanked him. Doug's awesome. Doug sang it, played it, recorded it, and then I did the intro. So so Robert says the intro was fire.
Absolutely.
Eduardo Bernadette enjoys that intro. Grant Heiser, just like to report it. Just kidding. So, all right. So for those of you who just got in here and missed it, I'm going to go ahead and play the intro one more time since it's so this is the new Mock Draft Monday intro that you're going to see every week for the rest of the season. Enjoy.
Hey, yo, it's Joe. He's the host of Mock Draft Monday on the Cardinals show. So join the live, hit like and subscribe. Enjoy the podcast tonight. Enjoy the podcast tonight.
Now, you all didn't get to see what I saw, which was Zach just rocking out to that thing. Yeah. All right, so anyway, I hope you all enjoy that. Fun stuff. So, yeah, huge shout-out to Mikey. Huge shout-out to my friend Doug. Huge shout-out to everyone who's here hanging out with us. Let me say hey to some of the folks that are in the chat who are here hanging out with us, who I haven't already mentioned. We have Nick in the house. Thank you, Nick, for being here. I think Calf Coach and ex-head coach, we're going to talk about that in a minute. That may very well be what is going on. We've got Easy No Service. Flores dropped out. Yes, we will talk about that in a minute. Let's see. We have Simon. Thank you for being here. Awesome intro. I appreciate that. Troy, Kafka Crew. Assemble! That might be it, right? So, yeah, right. And then we've got Gustavo Mota. Yes, sir. Appreciate you being here. Yes, sir. Fire. Yeah, Grand Nicer League of Bald Men and Bearded Men show. That
You
is
forgot
right.
beautiful.
Bald, beautiful, and bearded. Yes, bald,
Yes.
bearded, and beautiful. So, well, so let's hit on that though. So I always try to do a little bit of what's current in the Cardinals news before we get into the mock drafts and everything. So, earlier this week, or actually yesterday, Jeremy Fowler tweeted out that the Arizona Cardinals have informed several head coaching candidates that they are out of the running per sources. Steelers assistant coach Brian Flores, Giants offensive coordinator Mike Kafka, and Bengals defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo are the three known finalists. So this was tweeted out, and then other tweets followed that supported this, basically, reiterating that other candidates, like Callahan and Aaron Glenn and Vance Joseph had been notified that they are no longer being considered for this head coaching position. All right, so that came out yesterday, and then John Gambadoro, someone who folks in Phoenix know from the local sports radio, tweeted out earlier today, I would expect that the Arizona Cardinals will announce their next head coach early next week. And in subsequent comments, he mentioned that he thinks as early as Tuesday. So, that's led people to think, okay, some people had thought maybe they were going to be waiting on some of the Eagles coordinators, Sean Sykin or Gannon, the defensive coordinator. And, this, though, if Gambo's, information is accurate, then that would lead you to believe they're not going to wait to interview one of those two, but rather they're going to go with one of their finalists. But that was narrowed down just a bit today when it was reported that Brian Flores accepted the defensive coordinator position with the Vikings. He had been a candidate for their defensive coordinator position. He had been a candidate in Atlanta, and I think at maybe a few other places. And so now this is one of those three finalists apparently off the table. And certainly, Cardinals fans are kind of having mixed reactions to this. Some of them did not like him as the coach anyway. Some of them are disappointed because they did like him. He was the only one with head coaching experience. Others are feeling frustrated that, that this speaks badly of the Cardinals organization, that a coaching candidate would take a defensive coordinator position rather than continue the process for the head coaching search. So, there's a lot of feelings about this. So at this point, we don't know exactly what else is going to happen, but it does seem like Kafka and Lou Anarumo are the top two candidates. One, a young offensive-minded coach from the Andy Reid tree. The other, more of a veteran defensive coach who people have raved about his culture and leadership. So this is kind of where we're at. I think a lot of Cardinals fans just want to get a head coach and move on. We'll get a couple comments before we get into, and then we'll go on to the mock draft stuff. Austin Hoy saying, I suggested the Kafka hire a few months ago on your show. Okay, good, awesome. Moore's Legacy, Payo, trade proposal, Cooper Kupp for Robbie Anderson. What do you say?
Hard reject. You could offer your next 20 first-round draft picks for Cooper Kupp, and I would say no.
Well, we know that's not going to happen because the Rams don't believe in first-round picks. But
yeah,
but yes, fair point, right? Robert believes head coach announcement will be next week after the Super Bowl. I think that's probably right. We've got Neil Braley. Good to see Payo, missing NFC West Network. Appreciate you being here, Neil Braley. Thank you. And yes, it's always good to see Zach here. So before we get on, Zach, as an outsider, do you have any thoughts or observations about the Cardinals head coaching situation and search?
So I'll be honest, I've actually been watching it really closely. I think it's one of the most interesting head coaching positions in the NFL right now. Because you do have the narrative of, the Cardinals quarterback is injured. People don't like him. He's tough to work with, and there's that narrative. And then there's the other narrative of you have just even a year ago, a team that was ideally competing for a Super Bowl, but just they fell off. You have talent on both sides of the ball. And you have the third overall draft pick, which I'm going to talk about later in my mock draft that I did for the Cardinals. And Honestly, I'm not exactly sure where the truth is, but I do think it's fascinating. I am of the mindset, and Joe, I've told you this. I've told every Cardinals fans I know. The person the Cardinals need to fire is your PR department, because the Cardinals can't have a good media cycle to save their life, and they and even I'm his name escapes me. Your new GM.
Oh, Monty Austinfort.
Yeah, Monty. Even his whole thing of like ego won't be tolerated. You have to know that's throwing your quarterback under the bus when you say that. Like
even if you didn't intend it, it's going to be perceived that way, right?
Yeah. So I think investing in some PR consultant might be a good thing for the Cardinals. But anyway, that's my opinion of the Cardinals.
Yeah, it's an intriguing job. I don't think I know some people think it's this horrible job. I don't think it's a bad job for the right coach. There's a lot of things to work with, but it's also fraught with some landmines and some baggage. It's been a rough year for the Cardinals from a PR perspective. They've been in the news for the wrong reason over and over again, and it's just like it's like when you throw blood in the water and a shark, just like the media, like, oh, there's something juicy coming out of Arizona, and they just keep coming back and it perpetuates itself and gets worse. So they need a boring year from a PR perspective for things to settle. So yeah, I think that's a fair point. I got some comments here, Keith, saying Cardinals motto: we don't hire the best, but we pass the savings on to you. Michael Evans saying it's a dumpster fire. Listen, I'm more optimistic than that, but I hear it. I don't think the organization's as bad as people think, but the PR, the impressions have been bad lately, no doubt. Neil saying I'm Anarumo or bust at this point. I like Anarumo. I like both the two finalists. I'm going to be happy with either of them, but I hear that. I like Dogs. Hey, Payo. Appreciate you being here.
Yeah, I like Dogs. A huge Chiefs fan, so good luck to your Chiefs this weekend.
Good luck, yeah, enjoy the game. Good luck to them going to the Super Bowl. Randy Morrison, Kafka is my guy, or Steichen, since he is ties to Monty, an assistant GM, I believe. I mean, listen, Steichen was one of the guys I mentioned in the past I thought he'd be a good fit because of what he's done with Jalen Hurts, and thinking he'd do something similar with Kyler. It doesn't seem they didn't seem to have interest in him unless they're going to reach out to him after the Super Bowl. But I do like Kafka. He's got that Andy Reid tree kind of going for him. He coached there with Pat, quarterbacks coach for Pat Mahomes. What he's done this year with Daniel Jones was really, really good. So we'll see, right? Neil saying we built our roster like we're going for a Super Bowl run. We're the Rams without the ring. I mean, we built with a lot of veterans and older players, which is rough, right? And and Dakota Bernard saying here, breaking news: AJ Green retired. Speaking of older players, right? So it's kind of tough, and we need a reset, right? In terms of going in a different approach in terms of how we build this roster and things like that. And that's something we've been talking about, and we'll talk about more this offseason. Let me say hey to a couple other people real quick. Moore's Legacy, thanks for being here. Would we have a Super Bowl if the Cardinals signed Peyton Manning? Maybe. I don't know. It's hard to know.
Dangerous game to play, Moore's Legacy.
Yeah, you're right. Going down that rabbit hole, right? So I don't know. Yeah. Jordan P saying Doug Peterson actually wanted Kafka as his OC before they signed Sirianni. So that's an endorsement I would take right there, right? So yeah. And then Michael, thank you for being here. Hey, it's Payo. Yes. Yep, and then Grant just mentioned. Yep, Flores took the Vikes DC job, right? So okay. So that's kind of what's going on with Cardinals news. We're gonna move on, or let me say here real quick to Joey, one more person. Hey guys, what's the deal with Vance having a contract with us? Side note: Kafka helped the Giants go 4 wins tonight, including making the playoffs. So real quick, I'll hit on that Vance Joseph situation, and then we'll go on to the draft and prospects. So Vance Joseph is still under contract with the Cardinals as their defensive coordinator. And the way the league rules is if you are under contract as a coordinator, you cannot interview for a position that is a lateral move without permission of your existing team, right? So like Vance Joseph could interview for head coaching jobs, but he has not had any invitations for that this year. It does sound like there are reports that there are teams that would be interested in him as their defensive coordinator if he were released by the Cardinals from his duties. And it sounds like the rumors are, the reports are that Michael Bidwell would like the next head coach to retain Vance Joseph as their defensive coordinator. Some have even gone so far as to suggest that has been a condition of employment. I don't know if I believe it's that strong as much as he's really trying to hope that they will. So they have not let him go. So clearly they would like him to stay if possible. I think if Kafka's the head coach, I think Vance Joseph will be the defensive coordinator and he's staying. If Anarumo is, I think it's less likely because Anarumo is a defensive coach and he might want to bring a different system altogether. So Vance is just kind of hanging out in the wind, waiting and hoping. Reports are Vance would like to be back. Here. So that's kind of where it's at. We'll see what happens, right? I'll say hit a few more people, then we'll get into the draft stuff. Decimus, how great is the possibility of talking to the Kansas City coordinators? I don't think that's likely. I think that the offensive coordinator is who we probably most likely you would think we'd most likely be interested in, but Eric Bieniemy turned down an opportunity to interview with the Cardinals a couple times, or when they hired Cliff, and they did not reach out to him this time. I don't think they're going to, so I just don't think that's going to happen. Johnny Griff, thanks for being here, Professor. What up, dude? Just wondering what you think is happening with Hop. He met with Austin Fort this weekend. We haven't heard anything specifically. I think it's a 50-50. It all depends on how that went down. I think Austin Fort tried to gauge how committed Hopkins would be to a reset and if he would want to be here through that and how committed he was to the process. And I think if Hopkins went to that meeting, like just been, listen, man, I'm all in. I want to be part of this, they'll keep him. If he somehow, kind of balked, I think they're going to trade him. And I don't know what happened at that meeting. So I know that's kind of hedging. I really don't know. I can absolutely see it going either way. It really depends on how that conversation went. There have been, I think Hopkins on his Instagram, showed a Cardinals hat that he designed, and he was talking about that after his meeting. Some people took that as a sign that he's staying. We'll see, though, right? Drew McWhorter, happy Mock Monday. Thanks for being here. Okay, let's get into the first order of business, which is I like to do a player profile. Just introduce us all to a prospect, usually someone. I try to go someone that's deeper in the draft because we're all going to hear so much about the top, the first round prospects.
Right. But
those guys that are going to go on day 2 and day 3, we're going to hear less about. And I'm learning about these prospects. We're all learning about it. That's what we do here on Mock Draft Monday is we learn about this draft class and have fun gaming the mock drafts. So each week I try to introduce a prospect that I just think is interesting. And this week it is wide receiver Ronnie Bell out of Michigan. Ronnie Bell is 23 years old. He's a graduate student at this point. He's 6 foot, 190 pounds, projected to be a day 3 pick. Maybe some I've heard like 5th round-ish. So he's a little bit older prospect. He never had a huge season. He has led Michigan in receiving a couple times. He had a little bit of injury issues. In terms of his profile, he's the scouting reports say that he's really good in terms of his route running. He does have some good speed, stop and start. But his one thing they did mention is in contested catches, he's not as great as he could be. But he seems like the kind of guy who's going to have some good speed, good route running. One report I read said that he's kind of like he's going to profile as a number 3 receiver in the NFL who could eventually develop into a number 2 receiver. And so, with the Cardinals, I've been looking at receivers a lot of times on day 2 and 3. They've got Hopkins. Maybe if they trade him, I think they're drafting someone. A Hollywood Brown, but there's still some question marks. AJ Green retiring and everything. So I think Ronnie Bell is one of those interesting day 3 receiver prospects that you draft and try to develop as a guy who, can eventually become a key part of this receiving corps. So I think he's an intriguing prospect when you're looking for some value later in the draft. So that is Ronnie Bell, receiver out of Michigan, our profile this week. So I'm going to say hey to a couple other folks. We got Aaron Van Buren, who just dropped in. Yo, not to be confused with Ronnie Brown, the Dolphins legend, right? So thanks for dropping in. So anyway, this is I don't know if there's anything you wanted to say about him or if you want to get into the mock drafts, but I'll give you a chance there.
Yeah. I'll just say this: it's I love what you do on Mock Draft Mondays, Joe. I look forward to tuning in as a viewer when I'm not on the show this entire off season. It's awesome that you do this every week, and for this reason, highlighting players that deserve to be celebrated. They deserve to get some recognition. Because of the way the NFL draft process works, there probably not going to be a lot of discussion around them because they're not going to go in the first 2 rounds. So it's awesome that, we can, as viewers of this show, get educated of these kind of names we can look for. And, Ronnie Bell here seems like he could be, someone the Cardinals definitely target. Under the previous coaching regime, the Cardinals struggled to develop wide receivers. That's not a big secret. So if you're going to, put support around Kyler Murray, and especially if Hopkins does go, you got to have someone to throw the ball to.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. And I think you're right. And, they've got some high price receivers right now with Hollywood Brown, DeAndre Hopkins, and Hopkins is getting up there in age. Rondale Moore hasn't been able to stay healthy. AJ Green retiring, and even though you think they've invested a lot in receiver, they're going to need to replenish that. And I think I would rather take a guy like this and develop him than be trading another first round pick for another Hollywood Brown. I like Hollywood Brown. I know some people hate that trade. I actually think it's going to work out fine, but rather than being in that position, I'd like to draft guys like this and develop them, right?
Yeah.
And so 100%. But thank you for that. Yeah, and again, for me, this is the fun part because on day 2 and 3 in the draft, like I keep saying, when these guys get picked, folks who've been hanging out with us and doing these mock drafts are going to know who they are, and it's just going to make that much more enjoyable. Yeah, can't forget Dortch the Torch. Of course not. I hope they keep him around for a long time. He needs to be a part of this offense. He is so effective. So, all right, so this Ronnie Bell's our profile. We're going to now get into some of our mock drafts. So I did here's his PFF grades. Ronnie Bell's PFF grades. He had injuries in 2021, so the grade is high, but he didn't play much. So anyway, I forgot to put that on there, but there is his stuff. Oh, and Chris Smith asking, does he play special teams, punt return, kick return? Okay, good question. Ronnie Bell did some return duties at Michigan, but my understanding is he wasn't the primary. When he was recruited out of high school, though, he was a return man in high school. Has some returns in college. So I think he's certainly done it. Maybe not a ton at the college level, but he's someone that could be part of what he does. So great question. Obviously, that's something else to look at for in a receiver prospect. And MKT Bongo, thanks for being here. Finally made it to live, and it's a Monday mock draft. Let's go. And has anyone said that both you guys look like Dale? No disrespect. How's that disrespectful, man? Yeah. Bald, bearded, and beautiful, dude. That's exactly. That is no disrespect at all. But thank you. So let's get into our mock draft. So first up, I did a Rams mock draft. Payo did a Cardinals mock draft, and then he also did a Rams and a Cardinals. So we're going to kind of look at these. So we're going to start off, I believe, with your mock draft, starting off with a bomb drop. So I'm going to turn the floor over to you, Zach, and you get to explain yourself.
Okay. Before Cardinal fans, freak out at me and go and they trash my channel or anything like that. Hear me out. I don't believe the Cardinals are taking Will Lewis. I don't believe the Cardinals are picking at this third pick. And I say that because the PFF mock draft simulator, it makes trades are just tough. It kind of messes it all up. So I went into this. I didn't want to make any trades. I wanted to actually make the picks, but I am so convinced. I'm not a gambling man, but if I was, I don't think the Cardinals are going to be picking at 3. I think they're trading down. I think they're sticking with Kyler Murray as their quarter. Yeah, I see the reactions in the. Yeah, okay, guys, hear me out, okay? Okay, just hear me out. Is when it looks like you have the 3 quarterbacks in this draft that are going. I don't know if someone trades up with the Bears at number 1 to get that spot. The Texans, they got to take one of them. They got whoever they want as a quarterback. They got to take it. The Colts pick at number 4 though, and I also believe the Colts. They've been on a carousel of veteran quarterbacks for years now. They have an opportunity to get one of these young quarterbacks that have a bright future ahead of them. So I think if any team wants to leapfrog the Colts, the Cardinals are in a very strategic spot. So I don't believe the Cardinals are picking Will Levis. Okay, just hear me out. I do believe that the Cardinals will trade down. Maybe it's with the Colts. I don't know. Maybe it's with someone else. I believe they trade down. They accumulate more picks, and so everyone. That is my rationale there. So save the pitchforks, people.
Okay. So I mean, I think okay. So you're not saying Cardinals are taking a quarterback there. You think that's the player that will be picked at that spot by someone else?
Yes.
Okay, that's fair. No, that makes sense. I was saying the scenario you just described, the Cardinals, going to the Colts and saying, hey, if you don't trade up to 3, there's a couple other teams that are going to trade up. So if you want your guy, you're going to have to trade with us. So the Cardinals trading back to 4 and then still getting probably either Jalen Carter or Will Anderson potentially in that situation and then adding draft capital. Like, to me, that's like the best case scenario. So, if it plays out that way, and I think a lot of Cardinals fans would hope that we could trade back a spot, still get one of the blue chippers we'd like. And, trading to 4 with the Colts is masterful, right? So, yeah. Joey's saying, Payo, this is killing me, bro. I think, but yeah, Joey missed the explanation, maybe. But I think there's a more important critique. Troy has mentioned, wow, no John Michael Schmidt. Someone doesn't watch mock draft Mondays. Listen, this is your first appearance of the season here, and I'm going to wonder if it's your last now, Payo, because you did not pay homage to the one, the only
John Michael, he's our center Schmitz. His name's on my draft too. No matter what they say, this mock is a-okay. It's got John Michael, he's our center Schmitz.
Zach, I don't even know who you are anymore, dude.
Okay. I would like to point out that last year on Mock Draft Mondays, you were obsessed with Matt Ariza.
And we do not talk about that. We do not bring that up.
And so I'm just saying that maybe getting so fixated on one player being on your mock draft.
We don't want the mock draft Monday kiss of death for John Michael Schmitz.
Okay. So I'll admit I didn't get. I did. Okay, I see the tomatoes coming at me, Joey. Anyway, I'll just continue this. I don't like some Red Sea. I do believe the Cardinals are gonna continue to bolster their defense. I think that going into next year, you're not gonna have Kyler Murray. That is very sorry, Robert. So you're starting off the year without Kyler Murray, by the sounds of it. So I think this team is gonna need to lean on its defense. I think they're gonna need to steal some wins if they're gonna be playing with a backup quarterback. And so I think doing your draft capital in players that can hopefully come in and contribute right away is important. And so I looked up. It seems like, and again, everyone, I don't claim to be a draft expert. I am someone who is I started this week my pre-draft research. But Will McDonald is a name that a lot of people like at Iowa State. I think spoiler alert, I put him on my Rams mock draft also in the second round. It seems like that would be a really good pick for a lot of teams because you can never have enough good pass rushers, right? And then bolstering that secondary, Budda Baker can't do it all himself. And then I didn't get I wanted to be honest, I actually think I could have drafted John Michael Schmidt, but I purposely was like, oh, you know what? I'm going to pick a different center just to change it up because, that happens. But yeah, then, continuing to, draft more edge players, draft a wide receiver because I always think each team needs to draft a wide receiver and a running back late in every draft just because you never know. And you should always be developing because those players often get injured. And if those players get injured, it's really tough to score points.
Yeah.
And Ken, I will say, anyone watch Kenny McIntosh out of Georgia's highlights? That guy he can run it. He can run it. So if you're getting him in the 6th round, like that might be your best pick of the draft. And then, you got to always hope to be developing talent on both sides of the trenches. So picked up a tackle and an interior defensive lineman there. So anyone come at me. I wasn't trying to wreck the Cardinals. Okay.
Well, let me start by saying thanks to Jason for super chat. What's up, Joe? Nice to see you again. Lou time. Lou Anarumo. I think Lou is becoming a very popular candidate with a lot of fans. I'd be very happy with him. Jason, thank you for the super chat. Appreciate your continued support. So let me get some of the feedback. I think there's, in all seriousness, like Decimus loves the Wicks pick. He mentioned Dontavian Wicks, a receiver out of Virginia that you've got in round 5. I think getting a receiver to develop there, I like. So I like that for sure. People, I think now, again, I've said this before, folks maybe are just jumping in. Payo is not saying that we're actually taking Will Levis. He just said we're trading back and he thinks that that's who we'll take. So Red Sea, no, we're not going to drop kick Payo. I can
take it.
Yeah. So Zach wants to pull a Jordan Love situation with Green Bay. We don't know how that worked out. No, he doesn't. No, he just anyway. Okay. So here's what I'd say. I mean, I think a lot of Cardinals fans would feel like an edge rusher is, a premier edge rusher in particular, because we've got some developmental guys we like in Myjai Sanders, Cameron Thomas. So Will McDonald, could be a really intriguing pick there in the early 2nd round. I think a lot of Cardinals fans feel like we should probably add a cornerback, especially since we have a couple key cornerbacks that are free agents. We don't know if they'll be back. Byron Murphy Jr. And Antonio Hamilton. So I see a lot of Cardinals fans taking quarterbacks. I usually take one, so I like that. Luke Whippler, depending on who you ask, is maybe the 2nd best center in this draft. He's one of the top 3 typically to most people. So if you're not getting Schmitz, he's a guy I often look at, so I like that. Getting another developmental edge rusher in round 4 is interesting. I think they have a handful of those guys. So I don't know how many of them you can fit on the roster. So I usually just go one edge, but once in a while I'll go 2. Getting a receiver late I like. Kenny McIntosh is a favorite in Mock Draft Mondays already. He's arguably the best receiving back in this draft class, and you talked about his highlights. So I love picking him up in the 6th round. You see him on a lot of my mock drafts for that same reason, to get that change of pace back for 3rd downs at minimum, and maybe eventually more. And then McClendon Curtis is someone who's shown up out of some of my mock drafts as well, kind of the developmental tackle. I love that. DJ Dale is on a lot of mine as well. He's more of a run stopper in defensive line. Getting him on late day 3 is great. I always say, like, if all things being equal, if you're not sure who to take, look at someone from a big program like Alabama, because they're going to have the physical traits.
Yeah, absolutely.
Be developed. So overall, aside from the wonky beginning quarterback thing, let me ask you this. Assuming we trade back, do you have any thoughts on who you might take somewhere in that top 5 to 7 of the football?
I think you have to take best player available in, like, if there's the scenarios where they trade back and they're still within the top 10, they got to take best player available, whether that's a corner, maybe that's a receiver,
Okay.
A top flight edge rusher or defensive tackle. But yeah, I am, like I said, I'm not a gambling man.
Yeah.
But if I was, I would put money that the Cardinals are not going to pick at 3. They are going to trade down, and that's why I put that Will Levis pick there. Okay.
Gotcha. Moore's Legacy wasn't DJ Dale in the draft last year too. He was okay. So PFF's draft board for this mock draft, they populate it kind of early. So some of the players they add are players who end up going back. DJ Dale was a guy who was in last year's mock draft database who ended up going back. There's another guy, Cameron Latu, who I think you picked up on a draft I've seen we might get to, but who was another one from Alabama who was there last year, went back. And there's a few players on this year's list who already are going back to college, like Cedric Van Pran, the center from Georgia. He's still in there. So yeah, it's one of those little kind of wonky things, right? Okay, so overall, I think you have a reasonable understanding of where the areas of need are for the Cardinals. I think, aside from the wonky quarterback stuff, which again, you're not taking him there, you hit on a lot of the positions Cardinals fans are taking. So I commend you, Zach, Payo Time, on having an awareness of our needs. So good job. So I'm now going to do my Rams mock draft, okay?
Okay.
All right, so I try to really, really channel the spirit of the Rams, okay? So I traded all my picks except for one for Chris Godwin and took a kicker because, of course, F them picks, right? Okay, I kid. I actually have a regular mock draft, but I had to. I think I would be derelict of my duty if I did not show Les Snead saying F them picks and trade them all away, right? Okay, Jordan saying, Joe, your mock draft should be 0 picks or trade all the picks. Jordan, let me tell you something. I tried to trade all the picks, but what happens is when they do the final mock draft thing, they don't show your mock draft. They just show the first round. They actually, if you trade away all the picks, they do not give you this screen from me. So I could not have done this. So believe me, Jordan P., I tried. All right. So what do you? So this is getting a solid C plus, right? That's the skip right? Nick likes it. Drew loves it. Eduardo says greatest draft ever. Red Sea, best Rams mock draft of all time. Robert Moore thinks Lions need our Rams need O-line. Will move on from Ramsey. Maybe. Would that be interesting to hear thoughts on that? Joey likes it. Mikey loves it. Channing in a Rams horns up. And you still got a C plus. He thinks that's funny. So before we get to my regular mock draft for the Rams, because I do have one that I took serious.
Okay.
What do you think about the whole the Ramsey situation since we've got you here?
Yeah. So I think Ramsey is a big name, right? Mm-hmm. And the Rams have often restructured contracts in the past years. He is kind of the one-star player. The Rams haven't really touched his contract. And for those of you who don't know, often when you restructure a player's contract, often it does mean adding an extension to it in additional years. The Rams, Ramsey, I believe he's still under contract till 2025. So, that's probably the reason why they haven't done it. However, he did get burned, last year, and he still played well. Don't let anyone tell you that he's, totally fallen off, that he's not an NFL quarterback anymore. No, he's still a very talented individual, but he is getting older. He's maybe not quite the shutdown corner he once was. I am of the mindset of I would love him to be a hybrid safety and cornerback for the later part of his career. I still think he's one of the best tackling defensive backs in the NFL. There's very few defensive backs that make an open field tackle as good as Jalen Ramsey. Mm-hmm. Now, that being said, the way the cap went up this year, that did help the Rams a lot. And for that reason, I don't see Jalen Ramsey being a cap casualty. I see that comment, Robert Moore. But I think that the Rams are an organization that's not afraid to eat some cap. They're not afraid to make a big splash or make a big move. Seeing them move on from Brandon Cooks or Todd Gurley or Jared Goff, those are moves that a lot of teams aren't willing to make. So is it far-fetched to say if the right trade came up, would the Rams take it? No. And I'm sure that I would, again, not a gambling man, but I would put money that Les Snead has had the conversation of, okay, what if we traded Jalen Ramsey? But I really don't think, because the Rams are going to, we haven't got our defensive coordinator in place yet, because Raheem Morris is in the running to get the Colts head coaching job. Mm-hmm. And so if Raheem Morris left, I think we'd want to, figure out who our defensive coordinator is before doing anything with Ramsey on the trade market. But yeah, I'm a fan of Jalen Ramsey. I hope he stays with the team. And like I said, I do hope for the later part of his career, he plays a hybrid safety and corner role.
So let me ask this question. If you had to put a percent on it, the percent chance that he's a Ram next year, what do you think that likelihood is in your opinion?
I'd say a solid 87%.
Okay. Well, clearly when you have a specific number like that, it's scientifically tested.
Clearly.
Yeah,
so you and I both work in education. We know.
Yes, trust me. I work at a university. So okay. Yeah. So you feel pretty confident. Okay, nice. Okay. So I like it. Because that means we can keep toasting him with Agent Green's retired. No, I'm kidding. Okay,
Agent Green's retired. Yeah.
Yay. All right. Okay. Good. Well, let me do my actual Rams mock draft and see what you think about this. Mm-hmm. So when I looked at the Rams, I thought I tried to define what I thought were positions where either they needed someone or maybe they could use an upgrade or depth. And I felt like they could use a starting safety. Yep. And Robinson is considered maybe the most complete safety in the draft. So if you could get like an ace safety back there, I think that could help your defense. I feel like you need some edge rushers. You've got Aaron Donald for however long he's going to play, but I feel like, you've had a hard time developing outside edge rushers on your own. You brought in a few veterans. So I went with Isaiah Foskey out of Notre Dame. You have a center in Brian Allen, who I think was injured some. I think if that's one of those positions where maybe you could use some reinforcement, if not a guy to become the guy. So I drafted one of the better centers out of Michigan, Oluwatimi. And then I went with Connor Galvin in the 5th round, a tackle out of Baylor. You've got Noteboom, who you like, and Havenstein, I believe, on the right side, who's a veteran who's been solid. But there's room to develop either maybe, Noteboom, I know you all like him, but he's not, he's been hit or miss sometimes.
To be honest, we don't really like him anymore.
You don't really like him. Okay. So there you go. So this is a guy who could maybe develop to take his place or at worst be a swing tackle potentially. I got you with Ronnie Bell, right? I try to go with a theme with the players right?
The week,
yeah. Kenny McIntosh. We didn't talk about this before. You like Kenny McIntosh. We like Kenny McIntosh. Got you a third down back at minimum. Got you a cornerback to develop late in day 3. I also got you a tight end. You have a tight end you like, but I think that's a position where you maybe want to draft and develop some guys for depth. DJ Dale, that interior defensive lineman, to develop that position, and got you a quarterback on day 3 to kind of, try to develop along those lines. So what's your thoughts and feedback on this draft as a Rams fan?
I think you did a great job. So the Rams have about 25 free agents this year. So we are losing a number of them, but we definitely need to draft some safeties, and the Rams drafted a lot of secondary players last year who played well, especially towards the end of the season. But I could see us getting a safety like Robinson early on, and definitely edge is always a need. And we had Michael Hoyt, Canadian, who came on strong last year, but we need to continue to whoever's playing opposite Leonard Floyd. And then the Rams O-line, I saw this comment on there. We got decimated by injury. We had a total of 12 different combinations of offensive linemen for 12 weeks in a row, the first 12 weeks of the season. And so it's just hard to have that consistency. I'm a firm believer the Rams need to first get healthy this offseason, and then they need to get stealthy. The Rams have made a lot of big splash moves in recent years. I think this is an offseason the Rams really need to have those stealthy moves that no one really talks about, but end up making big impacts on the field next season. And I think a lot of these draft picks here would be those stealthy moves. And I like drafting Kenny McIntosh. We cut Darrell Henderson in season. So the Rams always draft a running back late, like we always do. It's just sort of a Sean McVay staple. I see you had us get a quarterback late. I would maybe want the Rams to draft one a little bit earlier even. The reality is John Wolford and Bryce Perkins didn't have the strongest performances in the backup quarterback role when you compare how backup quarterbacks on other teams performed. And so that is a position the Rams can upgrade behind Matthew Stafford. But I think this is a pretty good draft. Thanks for not doing the Rams dirty like your other previous.
Oh, like I did before.
Yeah, but no, I think it's pretty good.
Okay, I appreciate that. I appreciate that feedback. So awesome. So but you're going to show me how it's done now as a Rams fan, right? So let's look at your Rams mock draft, and you can talk about what your approach was here.
Yeah. So I will point out I did not trade anything, but I do believe that the Rams will actually trade back in the draft, even though this is before comp picks have been awarded. The Rams are projected to have 10 picks total this draft. So for everyone who's like, the Rams don't have draft picks, no, we do. There's all later. William McDonald got him in the second round. I think the Rams, that is a position the Rams really need to focus on this offseason. And yes, our offensive line definitely needs help. We did draft Logan Bruss last year as a guard. Unfortunately, got injured before the season started. And that was just the start of the Rams O-line injury bug. But getting someone as like Matthew Bergeron, struggle with his name. Bergeron,
I think is probably
And then I know that the Rams are not going to get one of the top tier quarterbacks in this draft. So I kind of look at that next one, and Aiden O'Connell is a name that it sounds like he is going to get drafted. And he had a solid college career out of Purdue, and I could see the third or fourth, fifth round the Rams taking a quarterback there. What I put there, the Rams always draft a running back, so I put put in one in the fifth round there, and then I really went offensive line heavy this draft. The Rams drafted a few they didn't in 2021. They didn't draft any O linemen, and they drafted a few last year. And I think the reality is we have a few free agents this year, so we're going to need to continue to develop our O line room. And then secondary is definitely a concern heading into this draft. We just hire today a new tight ends coach. And so I'd love to get a new tight end. So I'm glad you included tight end on your draft. So I included the one out of Alabama there in the sixth round. And then I put a fullback here because if anyone watches my channel, I have so many amazing OG Ram fans who are like, the Rams just need a traditional fullback to help us protect and run the ball. And I love it. I'm all for ground and pound, wishbone offense. Let's go. And I would love a traditional fullback because there's not too many. But Hunter Lupick out of North Dakota State. Sounds
I
like
would guess that's like Lipke, maybe.
Lipke. Is that how you pronounce it?
I'm guessing if someone knows that Lipke or Lipke would be my
You're
guess.
the professor, so
Well, that doesn't always do me much good, but yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so okay, I like it. So yeah, I mean obviously you know the Rams, so you understand what kind of their needs are. I've got a question. Robert's asking Zach, what about drafting Stetson Bennett for your future quarterback? How do you feel about that?
Honestly, I'm just at the point of where I am in my mock draft, research. I'm up for any quarterback with arm talent that shows potential to contribute if he had to go into a game. The reality is Stafford, though the elite arm talent that he is, he does have injury concerns, and we weren't able to get until we lucked out and got Baker Mayfield mid-season. We didn't have consistent quarterback play this year. I don't know if the Rams will be able to keep Baker, so the backup quarterback position is a need for the Rams, unfortunately. So yeah, I'd be game for Bennett to come and develop behind Stafford. Absolutely.
Cool. Awesome. All right. Before I show my mock draft, I want to say hey to some of the folks that have jumped in since we got started. If I haven't already acknowledged you, I want to try to at least get to everyone once. We got Austin in here. Ramsey still posting 86th grade, which is borderline elite. Yes, he did. Troy is saying, hey, you seem like a nice guy, but I want nothing more than to watch Rams collapse and combust into a pile of ashes forgotten in the annals of time in the most loving way possible. And thank you, Troy.
Respect.
Respect. MB, I hope we only get defensive picks this year. We'll get tons of time on the field and sand hurt for future years' needs. We need a lot of defensive help, that's for sure. Cardinals do. Jose saying here to Troy. Let's see, got a few other folks who jumped in. Teddy LBZ saying inside linebackers only and often. Am I right? I mean, if we're Steve Keim still picking, maybe for the Cardinals. Lance, let's go. Who's up next? Who's up next will be me, and then we'll get to the mock drafts from the audience that were submitted. So thank you, everyone, for jumping in. Okay, I'm going to share my Cardinals mock draft now.
Let's see it. Show me what I did wrong.
Oh, I didn't think you were far off. I think you did pretty good. Other than we just needed to have a pick in the first round, right?
Well. Huh. So I predict the Cardinals are going to trade, but I just I'm not going to do it to mess up mock draft Mondays. And then here you go.
Oh, we do trades this year. Did you not? Oh yeah, around here, this is a trade-friendly place. Okay, maybe last year I think we didn't do them, right? Yeah. Grandizer sharing his carry. Yeah, Joseph. So okay. Drew already loves this one. He's got Osiris from Whipple already love. Okay, so I traded back.
Yep. Yeah, you did.
Got with the Raiders, got pick 7 and then pick 38 in the second round, and also got their first round pick. It was PFF's mock drafting had a really low probability of it being accepted, but they still took it. And I think that's actually kind of realistic because there's that quarterback tax. When you're trying to trade up in this situation, you have to give more than the usual trade value, right? Yeah. So they traded back and added a first round pick next year and a second round pick this year. Took Miles Murphy. He's not as good of an edge rusher as Will Anderson, but he is got some really great physical traits, someone who you can develop. So I took him. And then Osiris Torrance is not usually there at pick 34, but he fell to me. He's a guy who usually goes in the first round. Arguably the best guard of this class. We need help on the offensive line, so I grabbed him. I couldn't resist that. Then I went with Emmanuel Forbes, a cornerback, later in the second round. There were a couple other good cornerbacks on the board like Keely Ringo, but I really liked Forbes. He graded really well. He's a ball hawk. He's kind of that cornerback I really like on day 2, if he, at least in the where he tends to fall there in the mock drafts. I traded back to get him and picked up another pick in the process with the Browns. Then I took defensive interior lineman Keanu Benton, who's had some nice moments at the Senior Bowl. The Cardinals need help in the trenches, defensive line, offensive line. So if I don't get Jalen Carter in the first round, I'm generally taking a defensive interior lineman in round 3, and Keanu Benson was the guy I got this time. Then I got our center, Luke Whippler. Yes.
Well,
it was not. Where is John Michael Schmitz?
Huh.
And I want to take this moment to mention that, talk about this, because you're not seeing John Michael Schmitz on my mock drafts as much for a reason, and I'll tell you why that is. Like, I can get him in with our second round pick, and I can often trade back and still get him later in the second round in terms of how the mock drafts play on PFF. But based on what he did in the Senior Bowl, I feel like his stock is going up. I think John Michael Schmitz might go in the late first round. I think he's a guy who could sneak into the late first round. So I'm not taking him in the second round, and I'm not trading back and taking him, not because I don't want him. I absolutely do want him as my center. I'm just realistically, I'm not sure he's going to be available to us unless we, trade back up into the first round to get him. He might make it to 34. Okay. But I've been doing my mocks with other centers because I just think he's going to kind of work his way into that late first round. So Luke Whippler is a good consolation prize. Kendre Miller, a running back out of TCU, really productive running back who I really like. Then I went, I haven't been going linebacker a lot because we used first round picks back to back on linebackers. But at this point in the draft, the other positions were available were not positions, just weren't positions I really felt like taking at that point. This Dorian Williams is out of Tulane, a linebacker with really great grades. And I thought about it. Our GM is coming from the Patriots organization. We don't know who our coach is going to be, but I could see, the Patriots like drafting linebackers. They like, developing them. I could see our next coach, especially if it's a 3-4 base or 4-3 defense that we end up bringing in, going for a linebacker. If nothing else, bringing in a guy to be a backup or a part of that rotation, because you usually rotate a third linebacker in there. So anyway, I went with linebacker in the 4th round. I went with the receiver Ronnie Bell we talked about, Kenny McIntosh. Warren McClendon is a guy who's shown up a lot of my drafts late. He was the right tackle for Georgia. He graded pretty well playing in the SEC. To me, I think the reason he goes so late is because he's strictly a right tackle in college and probably going to be that in the NFL. So he doesn't have the positional flexibility to be a left tackle, but we need a right tackle. So if I can get a right tackle in the 6th round who has the potential to be a starter and started in the SEC, I will take that. And then Cameron Young, a defensive interior lineman, to kind of continue to develop. So that's what I went with there. Any thoughts or feedback on what you're seeing here?
Well, Joe, you just fixed the Arizona Cardinals in one mock draft.
I knew I could do it.
Yeah, no, I why aren't you GM? Really? Yeah, no, it's I think this is, if it works out this way, that's a good a good draft haul for the Cardinals. I don't think the Raiders are going to be the team that trades up with you. They seem like they're looking for a veteran quarterback of some kind. I think it'll be a different team that would trade up to that 3 spot. But like I said, I think it's coming. I think it's Cardinal fans. You're going to get so hyped. Joe's going to post a video. Every Cardinals content creator out there is going to be like, we just, best draft move was trading out of the 3rd spot for whatever reason. So yeah, I think it's gonna work out that way. And getting a top tier edge rusher like Myles Murphy, if you can do that in the top 10, you're doing well. And like you said, addressing the trenches on both sides of the ball, you can never go wrong with that. And I see Ronnie Bell coming up again today. I love it. Highlight player of the week. And so yeah, I think it's a good draft.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Let's see. Silver Wolf AC saying even the Rams mock drafts are above average. Okay, he likes. All right. Lance is saying, think those Raiders are going to give that round 1 pick back for Aaron. I mean, and listen, what you have to keep in mind with the PFF system is they they propose these trades, sort of a random number generator. So it's different each time you do a mock draft. The trades that are offered are by different teams.
Mhm.
The Raiders came up this time. Sometimes it's the Lions, sometimes it's the Falcons. I usually, when I do a trade back, it's somewhere between pick 6 and 9, so somewhere in this range. So even if it's not the Raiders, I feel like the outcome is probably going to be similar with if it's the Panthers, or something like that. So yeah. Let's see. Drew McWhorter saying JMS isn't going in the second round, in my opinion. That's why I would love Detroit falling in love with the quarterback and trading 6 and 18, give us more options. Yeah, whenever the Lions come up as a trade partner and I can get both of those first round picks, I do that. That would be awesome. Not sure. I have a feeling they're not going to do that, but boy, would that be nice, right? Austin is asking, Joe, what do you think about Andre Carter II? So, he's a guy who usually goes in the early second round in PFF's mock draft. I think he's from Army, if I'm not mistaken. He's he's a high upside, sort of developmental edge rusher. I'm going to bring up his profile just to look at it real quick, but I think he's an edge defender who's big. He's Army. I'm right. He's 6'7", 260. He's got those physical traits, but he didn't play against the top-notch competition. He's playing against Air Force and Wake Forest. Okay, but UT San Antonio and a lot of those. He's not playing against the SEC competition. So, but I like him I like him in the second round as one of those guys you draft for his traits and develop him. You just know he hasn't played against that elite competition at the college level, so he might take some time. He's a guy who the combine is going to be huge for. And based on everything you see, it seems like he's the kind of guy who will do well at the combine. So, if the combine shows what we expect it would show for him, he's a guy that I'm all for taking, on day 2 if he's there. If you want that developmental edge rusher, the traits are there, the size is there. Just got to make sure the physical tools check out at the combine and stuff. And also look at the other things like his bend and the kinds of things you look for. But if he checks all the boxes at the combine, I'd be up for drafting him. You just have to expect there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve, but the traits are there. So yeah. Real quick, GWY, wow, made it. Hey to all, thanks for being here. Appreciate that. Gregory Rousseau 2.0. Yeah, I mean, that's maybe one way of looking at it, except Rousseau played at a little bit, played against better competition, but he's that kind of player, right? Drew saying reminds me of Marcus Davenport. Raw tools, a guy, some guy reached for him in the first. Yeah, and the Saints reached for him, and he's been a good player for them. So yeah, I think he is. I think he's an interesting player, and I'm all for. On day 2 or 3, those are the kinds of guys I'm all for. Taking an edge rush like that, expecting you're going to have to give him some time to develop, and that's kind of what you got there. So, yeah. All right, so we've gone through our mock drafts and kind of talked about the Ronnie Bell and had some fun. So what we're going to do is I'm going to give Payo a chance to kind of say whatever he wants to say, shout out anything, and give his parting remarks. And then Payo's got to hit the eject button, and then I'm going to hang out and go over the mock drafts that everyone submitted. So Zach, before we get you out of here, first of all, thank you for being here. It is always a joy for me to get to hang out with you. You are, no joking, like one of the really good dudes I've had the chance to meet doing this content creator thing. It's been a joy for me to get to know Cardinals fans, but also meet people like you who do the same kind of thing, who are sincerely and genuinely good human beings. So I appreciate you, Zach. I appreciate your friendship, and I appreciate you being here with us. Joey, listen, later, Payo, you're awesome, man, right? So if you aren't subscribed to Payo, make sure you go subscribe. Check out he does some fun stuff. I know it's the Rams, but we're checking out the enemy, right?
Yeah.
Right. So absolutely. So thank you for being here, Zach. What do you want to shout out? What do you want to promote? Anything you want to say on your way out?
Yeah, well, Joe, thanks for having me. And all the kind words, definitely, totally right back at you. Feelings are mutual. love this part of doing the YouTube thing, that you get to meet cool people like yourself that I just never would have got the opportunity to. So I'm honored to come on your channel and talk some mock drafts with you. And everyone watching, thanks for having me on. I'm sorry if you didn't like my Cardinals mock draft. I hope it wasn't too bad. And if you come check out my channel, I like to think I'm just having as much fun as possible on the YouTube platform. I'm gonna be doing some skits coming out. I have a fun series called Recruiting Ram Fans coming up. That I'm actually attempting to write and do scripts for, Joe, which is new for me. But trying to play into the narrative that people think we can't pack out SoFi, but we're working on it. But yeah, love talking football with you, man. And everyone, thanks for being awesome in the chat. Blessings on you all. And I definitely intend to check out Mock Draft Monday more and more. And
so Grandizer wants me to ask you whose house.
See, Grandizer does this to me every channel I go on, but I like to be respectful that I'm on a Cardinal-centric channel. The answer to this is Rams house, because that is our chant. However, I am in no way trolling Cardinals fans by saying Rams house, just so you know. But much love, man. Thanks so much. Bless you in your content creation, and everyone have a great night.
Thank you, Zach. I will see you again later.
That's it.
Peace. All right. So Zach has left the building, and we're going to get into your mock drafts. So Omar, I'm so late. Don't worry about it. You're here. You are here just in time for the mock drafts submitted by the audience. And there's a few of them. we got a lot. So buckle up. Here we go. So let's get to the first one that was submitted. Moore's Legacy. And Payo in the chat saying, thanks all. Appreciate you, Zach. Thank you so much for being here and hanging out. So Moore's Legacy's got a mock draft, got a couple trades. Some interesting, spicy stuff here. He's got a trade there, Clyde Edwards-Helaire for James Conner. And there's a fourth rounder, so that's interesting. So Moore's Legacy went with Will Anderson, third overall. Keely Ringo in the second round. Traded back also in the second round. And, of course,
got John Michael, he's our center Schmitz.
He's got JMS, the legend. A defensive interior lineman, Gervon Dexter Sr. I don't know if it's Gervon or Gervon, how it's pronounced. I'm sure Red Sea will correct me on that, Corey. Then we've got Rashawn Johnson, the running back that we talked about last week. Love him in drafts. Then double dipped at the center position with Joe Tippmann. Some people consider him one of the better centers, if not the best in the class. I know there's different opinions, but one of the better centers. So you double dip there. I think that's interesting. Q Blue Kelly, I'm not even sure if I got that pronounced right, from Stanford, a cornerback. So I got a cornerback round 4. Neil Broker, guard out of Mississippi in round 5. Jervarius Owens, safety out of Houston. Defensive interior lineman DJ Dale. Habakkuk Baldonado, Pittsburgh defensive edge. Jonathan Evans, a punter out of Wingate University. I believe that's in North Carolina, if I'm not mistaken. And traded a future 6th-round pick to get that 7th-round pick to get the punter. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, Will Anderson, you love their number 3. Getting a cornerback round 2 like Keely Ringo, we love it. We love John Michael Schmitz. There's a lot of good defensive interior linemen in round 3, so you went with one of them there. There's probably half a dozen guys like this. I like the position. Rashawn Johnson, we talked about him. I love that. For me, going with another center, if it's me, I'm either going with a tackle or one of the better guards there. I know you got a guard in the next round, but rather than 2 centers, I'd rather get a tackle or one of the better guards than a second center. That's me. Unless you think one of those guys is going to move to guard, which is possible, but I think they're both pretty likely to be centers. Got another cornerback there. Depending on what happens with our free agents, we might need a couple. We'll see. Then you got a guard, Broker. I like that. Getting a safety. I'm going safety a lot late in the draft. I do feel like we could use a third safety, a backup Obviously our starting safeties are outstanding. One of the best tandems of safeties in the NFL, but I like the idea of drafting someone for depth there. I take DJ Dale a lot in my drafts, defensive interior lineman. I love it. Getting another edge defender to develop late day 3, sure. That's a guy who might end up on the practice squad, might make the roster, but yeah, go for it. And then going with a punter, right? Which we may need, right? So let's see. Moore's Legacy, can Joe Tittman play guard? So, I don't know if, I'm going to look real quick, see if, at least on PFF, if he's played guard before. So Joe Tittman, throughout his collegiate career, he played 11 snaps at right guard in 2020, but other than that, he has been only a center. So for me, I think that Tittman's probably seems like a starting center. So yeah, so for me, I wouldn't go 2 centers, but that's just me, right? For me, I would not, but I'd go a different position. But again, aside from that, I think it's a really good draft. Austin saying, Joe, why do people focus so heavily on tackle when we have so many other needs? I think, and he's saying, I feel like it's a waste of an early round selection. I would say, I generally agree. For me, okay, I know there's people take tackles early. We have 2 left tackles. You might not be a big fan of Humphreys. You might not love him, whatever. You might prefer an upgrade. And then we have Josh Jones. But we have 2 guys that, whether you love them or not, are starting caliber left tackles. Like, they're both are good enough to be a starter somewhere in this league. Right tackle is a question. Can Josh Jones move a right tackle? There's some uncertainty about that. He struggled with that position when he played there before, but that does not mean he couldn't do it. It's possible. But there's some questions at right tackle. But for me, you don't take a right tackle like really in the first round. Typically, if you take a tackle in the first round, you're looking for a left tackle, and if he doesn't work out as a left tackle, he then becomes a right tackle. Maybe that happens. But for me, I'm not taking tackle early because I feel like we have 2 left tackles. We're going to have to figure out what to do about one of them, whether we trade one or Josh Jones just walks as a free agent when his rookie deal is up, which I'd hate to see that. And then we need to look at right tackle, but I think you can address right tackle on day 3 or through free agency. So for me, I do tend to take a tackle, but it's usually on day 3. Sometimes on day 2, but if it's day 2, it's a guy who I want to plug and play at right tackle starter. But I usually look for guys later. So yeah, I'm not taking tackles in the first round typically, because I get it. Hey, if you can get a Pro Bowl caliber left tackle, don't you want to get it? Well, in a vacuum, yes. But when you have so many other needs, address those other needs now. And if you want to address tackle later, like next year or the year after, if you feel like we need a better left tackle, let's fix other spots, because tackle is not the biggest need, at least not left tackle, right? Drew saying Darnell Wright is the best right tackle in the draft, in my opinion. I think a lot of people agree with that. He's a guy usually getting maybe second round, sometimes third. So I'm not taking an early one for me. But anyway, Moore's Legacy, overall good draft. I just wouldn't do the 2 centers, but aside from that, yeah, I like it. Let's get on to the next draft here. Chris Young. Let's see. Looking at Will Anderson, number 3, of course, and then he traded back a little bit, but it's still.
It's got John Michael. He's our center Schmitz.
Right. So he's got, John Michael Schmitz. Then he took Steve Avila, a guard out of TCU. So I like getting a guard in there. Clark Phillips is a little bit of a smaller cornerback. He probably projects more as a slot cornerback, but listen, we could use that potentially depending on what happens with our cornerback room. Zach Pickens, defensive interior lineman out of South Carolina. Again, like getting that defensive interior line depth. We've got Andre Iosivas. I know I butchered that, out of Princeton, a developmental receiver on day 3. Kenny McIntosh, we've talked about. Braden Daniels, a tackle who graded really well. We've talked about him before. He's a little bit on the slight side. But when you get in the NFL, you can add that bulk, through training. but I like him as kind of a day 3 guy who's talented to develop. DeMarco Helms, safety, who I've taken a lot in my mock drafts on day 3. I like that. We talked about that earlier, taking a center or safety for like that backup. DJ Dale, more defensive line depth, and a kicker. So if Matt Prater, maybe we move on from Matt Prater. I don't know. So yeah, I think Chris, nailed a lot of the key spots. This is a good draft. I like a lot of these picks. I like the positions. I like where you took them. I think you did a really good job here for sure. Let's see, got a couple comments. Decimus saying our depth killed us last year. We need quality depth. We definitely do across the board in a lot of spots. We need some depth. Chad saying, thank you for being here, Chad, from Australia, I believe. A guy like me has submitted mock drafts to Joe before without tackles. So in this submission, I sent one with the tackle. As far as mocks go, variety is interesting. Okay. So I know you've got one that'll be coming up, I believe. So appreciate you hanging out with us, Chad. Okay. All right. And then, this I think we'll have a better idea of how to mock draft given new coaches. GMs build teams, coaches choose those teams. Could be a reason it's tough to fill the head coach, but this GM isn't proven. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of conversation about why, but listen, when we get our new head coach and he starts to assemble his staff and we have a better idea of what the personality is of this coach and what kind of team they're going to want, then I think it's going to impact our mock drafts, right? We're going to, especially if the defensive system is a little bit different than what it is now. So absolutely, that's going to influence things as we go. So awesome point there, right? And then free agency will definitely tell us a lot more about the draft because the spots they plug, right, in free agency, that's going to also impact that. And again, this is part of the fun. We're learning about this as we go, right? How do I think Anarumo would address the draft compared to Kafka? That's a good question. I think with Anarumo, you will see more of a leaning on the defensive side. I think you'll see, like, if it's if you're building a team around defense, you're going to probably build also on the running game. I think you'll see more of the defensive side, and then the offensive picks will prioritize the offensive line more and a running back, kind of how we've been doing it. I think if Kafka, I think you'll still see some emphasis on the defense because that's an area of need, but I think there'll be more offensive line emphasis, and you're more likely to see a receiver probably. So, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Lance, yeah, exactly what I meant. Just enough. Yeah, I hear you. Not enough characters to chat that, but yeah, absolutely. So, okay. So, this is a good draft, though, Chris. I like it. I like it a lot. Next up, we have Lance. You're here. We've got your draft. All right, so Lance also went with Miles Murphy, guy that I went with, right? And then he went with Cody Mock. Now, this mock draft simulator has him as in an interior offensive lineman. He's out of North Dakota State. PFF lists him as a tackle. That's not necessarily surprising because a lot of times you have guys who played tackle in college who they might project as an interior offensive lineman and as a guard. It just kind of depends. We'll see how it goes. But this is a guy who you're probably taking. Maybe he plays guard. Maybe he gets a chance at right tackle. So, that's a position I don't mind taking there. Then he goes Jack Campbell in the 3rd round, linebacker. I took a linebacker in mine in round 4, so I don't hate taking a linebacker. I'm probably going linebacker later than round 3. I think there's a lot of other needs that are bigger, like interior defensive line. But I don't mind getting a linebacker in there. Steve Avila, you got a guard there. I love that. I think he's a guy you could compete for a starting job potentially, so I like that. You got Travis Hodges Tomlin. I'm not sure if it's Tomlinson. It truncates his name there. A cornerback out of TCU. Again, getting another cornerback in the room. I like it. Then you double dip linebacker. So, it's interesting. It depends on what they do with those free agents. They've got a couple guys, like Ben Neiman that they may or may not bring back. And again, depends on the defensive coordinator they bring in. So, it's possible they could go with 2 linebackers there. Perhaps, yeah, we'll see. Then Gerard Clark, defensive lineman out of Coastal Carolina. I've taken him on late on some of my mock drafts, so I like that. And then you went with Stetson Bennett the 4th, quarterback out of Georgia, who's 37 years? Oh, he's joking, but he's older. I think he's like 25. But so day 3 quarterback to try to kind of replicate the Brock Purdy thing. Maybe a guy to kind of get in there. I don't hate that. For me, I'm probably going for veteran free agent quarterbacks to hold things over, and maybe looking at drafting a quarterback on day 3 next year. But that's just kind of me. But overall, Lance, I think you've got a good mock here. Lance is saying, I think we need another stud linebacker, some depth at defensive tackle and cornerback. Not flashy in this draft, just essential pieces to build trenches. That's LT's bloodline. Oh, Lawrence Taylor, is that what you're saying? Okay. I mean, overall, I think this is overall a good mock draft. Let's say watch those linebackers tape if you get a chance, right? Jordan P saying Tomlinson won the Jim Thorpe Award this year. Reason he's not highly touted since he gets beaten a bit too much. Okay. Drew saying I love any mock that has multiple offensive linemen, right? So, yeah, I think this is a good mock, Lance. There's, maybe for me, there's a few things I might do a little bit different, but overall, I think it's a good one. So good job, Lance. Next up, we have Brian Darko. Brian went with Jalen Carter, the first round, number 3. He went to DeJuan Jones, offensive tackle of 34, out of Ohio State. Then we have, of course,
it's got John Michael, he's our center Schmitz.
JMS for the win. So you address center. You've got a tackle who I'm assuming will probably play at right tackle, even though I believe he played left tackle in college. Then you've got Cedric Tillman, receiver out of Tennessee. So I like going receiver, on day 3 there. I think, he's late day 2, if I'm not mistaken. But I like going receiver a little bit later there. Tyreek Stevenson, cornerback in Miami, Florida. I like getting, obviously, a cornerback in there. Emil Ekiyor Jr., I probably butchered that, interior offensive line out of Alabama, right? Ventrell Miller, linebacker out of Florida. And then running back Israel Abanikanda. I know I butchered that. Running back late. So, yeah, obviously you love Jalen Carter. Love getting JMS, right? Like we talked about, we don't think he's going to go that late, right? Lucky if he's at 34, we talked about that. But, hey, let's enjoy that while we can, right? Getting a tackle in there, I don't mind. Usually I'm going to tackle a little bit later, but if you feel like you can slot him in at right tackle, I'll take that. So, yeah, I like it. Johnny G, LA sheep all day. Well, thanks for stopping by. Appreciate you, Johnny. All right. So good job, Brian. I like a lot of these players. Next up, we have Russ Carver, who sent me this. I think this is his first time submitting a mock draft with us. So, Russ, thanks for doing that. So he traded back with the Lions and got a couple first-round picks and then a 6th-round pick. So I like that. Then we got Will Anderson at number 7. So if that happened, that's a dream scenario, right? I don't think that's gonna happen, but yeah, I like that scenario. Then we got quarterback Joey Porter Jr., who's a really good cornerback and press man later in round 1. So you've got so with that second pick, or you traded, I think you traded back again, didn't you? You got the 2 first-round picks from Lions, or did you? I'm confused. Oh no, yeah, you've got multiple trades on here, don't you, Russ? Okay, and so you got Joey Porter Jr., so I like that. Then you got Will McDonald, who we talked about earlier. You've got that edge rusher, which that is nice. And of course,
got John Michael, he's our center Schmitz.
Yeah, JMS for the win. Then you've got another cornerback, Deontay Banks, who's a day 2 cornerback there in round 3. Then you got Matthew Bergeron. You got that tackle a little bit later, so he's got maybe he's develop him into or maybe see if he competes for that right tackle or he becomes a swing tackle. Then you double dipped Luke Whippler. So we had someone else who double dipped earlier. I wouldn't do that, but that's but listen, I wouldn't do that because I think those are both starting centers. So I think I'd rather use that second pick on a guard. Although you did get a guard because you've got a lot of picks here, right? So yeah. Jordan P is saying Devontae Banks is very under the radar. He's going to be he's going to shoot up boards. Okay. Mikey Joey Porter is going to be really good. Yeah. So yeah. Then you've got, so I wouldn't do 2 centers. That's me. I think there's other positions that I do there, but they're both good players. So pick the one you like, right? A.T. Perry, receiver. I know a couple people really like him out of Wake Forest. I need to look at him a little bit more, but round 4 going receiver. We've talked about going receiver on day 3. I like that. Getting a guard and Antonio Maffia out of UCLA, Kenny McIntosh. We love him around these parts. Another cornerback. You've got 3 cornerbacks. That's probably a bit much unless they're going to let all their cornerbacks go. But I'd probably be doing 2 max unless they're not bringing back Murphy or Hamilton, which who knows? With the new regime, we'll see, right? Jordan P. saying, yeah, A.T. Perry was dominating the Shrine Bowl. Okay. Then we've got kicker Jake Moody, tight end Cameron Latu. I don't mind getting a depth tight end on day 3. I kind of like that. And then Hunter Lepke, the fullback. We may need a fullback. Oh, yeah, you've got to trade Hopkins in here. So, trading away Hopkins, which we'll see what happens, right? Okay. A lot of picks here, Russ. I like a lot of the players you took. I like where in the draft you're taking the different positions. For me, the only thing I wouldn't do is I think there's a little too much redundancy on positions like center and cornerback. I think I'm not taking more than 1 center unless that second center is like round 7 backup kind of a guy. I'm not taking 2 starting caliber centers. And then I'm not taking 3 cornerbacks if it's me. But overall, I like the players and like generally what you did in terms of where in the draft you took them. So thank you for the mock draft, Russ. Red Sea, Corey. All right, we got Corey is our resident grammar police in the Discord. If you aren't part of the Discord, you should get in there and just do a bunch of typos just to make him pull his hair out just for fun, right? All right. So we have a trade back, right? Also with the Raiders, he got quite a bit of draft capital in that trade. And then he took Miles Murphy as I did. So it's similar to what I did in terms, of mine. And then, of course,
got John Michael, he's our center Schmitz.
And he took him at 34. Then we have Keely Ringo. Again, like that, getting that cornerback there. I think this is a deep cornerback class, so I think there's going to be some good cornerbacks there. And then Keanu Benson, a guy that I took, he got him late round 2, so I like getting him there. He's got the trade of Hopkins for that 2nd and a 4th. Right. Then he's got receiver Rashee Rice. So again, like getting a receiver there a little bit middle to later part of the draft. DeJuan Jones. That's a nice pick there in round 3, right? Maybe he becomes a right tackle. Rashawn Johnson, we talked about him. We like him. Jared Patterson's interesting. Like he's listed as a guard and he played guard this year, but the 2 years prior to that he played center. So he's got some versatility there. But you're getting him in, obviously if you're getting Schmitz, then you're looking at Patterson more as a guard. We've got Ivan Pace Jr., linebacker in 5th round out of Cincinnati. Jackson Kirkland, another guard who also has some tackle flexibility. Quarterback Dorian Thompson-Robinson out of UCLA. So going a cornerback late guy with, some interesting traits. DeMarco Hellens, a safety that, again, I like taking him late, so that's good. And Jake Moody, the kicker. Okay, so, let's see. I think you're doing okay, buddy. I think you've got some potential and promise as a mock draft guy. So keep with it. Obviously, I'm giving Red Sea some crap because he lives mock draft. So, all right. So and Eduardo saying a solid F in Thompson Robinson pick. Yeah, they don't like that pick for whatever reason, right? Drew is saying this cornerback class is insane. Gonzalez, Witherspoon, Porter, Forbes, Smith, Ringo, Ricks, Banks, Phillips, Rush, Stevenson, Thompson, nuts. Yeah, I think it's also it's a good class for sure. Okay, Marcus, thanks for being here. Marcus, the rough stuff love says somebody tell Mr. V to interview Chris Pearson, formerly of Boise State as OC, Anarumo head coach. Hey, we'll see. I mean, if Anarumo is head coach, it's going to be interesting to see who he brings in for his staff, right? Jordan P saying, I love Benton, Roshan, and Ivan Pace Jr. Ivan Pace had some insane pass rush traits. Not a Murphy fan. He's way too raw to go that high, in my opinion. Okay. McWhorter, good drop. But the Thompson Robinson pick, though, that wasn't future. That was Washington's future tight end. That's Washington's future tight end? Kind of doing this whole suggesting he's going to go the route of what's his name, who the Cardinals drafted as a quarterback who became a tight end. Yeah. Logan Thomas, right? All right. Let's see. Good job, buddy. I like it. All right. Next up, we have Facundo Morrissey. good friend of the channel out of Argentina. Appreciate you submitting your mock draft and appreciate you in general. He's got Will Anderson, number 3. Obviously, you love that. I mean, that's an A pick if you take him. Keely Ringo in the second round. We love that, right? That getting at one of those cornerbacks there. Luke Whippler, get that starting center, right? I like that. Steve Avila, potential starting guard. We've got another center double dip. There have been a couple of them like that, right? So that's the one thing that I wouldn't do if it's me. I've already talked about why, but pick one of those two and then use the other pick for a different position, like maybe tackle. But I like both players, right? Ali Gay, a edge rusher, so you get out of LSU, so you get another kind of developmental edge rusher. Cameron Young, defensive interior lineman, get some depth there. Cameron Latu, a backup tight end, I like that. DJ Dale, I like that. Getting some rotational depth on defensive interior line. Yeah, this is a good draft. I think. Again, the only thing I would do differently is I would use one of those picks, one of those center picks on a different position. I'll tell you. Maybe this is just me, but I really think we need to get a running back in there. So actually, if it's me, that Tippmann pick, I'd probably be going running back. I like James Conner. I like, the potential of Keontae Ingram with a better offensive line. But I really think we need to get at least one running back in this draft somewhere in those middle rounds, between round 4 or 5. To me, feels like the sweet spot. There's some good running backs there. So for me, that's the one thing that I'd probably really love to see on here. But aside from that, really good mock draft. Well, I mean, it's really good mock draft across the board. That's just the one thing I'd probably look to do differently. Drew McWhorter and Gay looked good at the Senior Bowl. So, yeah. Okay. Let's see. Next up, we have Robert Moore, Bobby Moore, who was in here in the chat earlier. So here is Robert Moore's draft. He went Will Anderson, number 3. He also was able to nab Osiris Torrance in round 2. So love that. I mean, man, if that happened, that's a guy who's probably a late first-round pick, mid to late first-round pick, best guard in draft. If he's there at 34, I think you got to pull the trigger on grabbing that guard who you can plug and play as a starter. Love it. Luke Whippler, love it. You're fixing some really key spots, right? Then Jalen Jones, a cornerback in round 3. We talked about how deep this cornerback class is. I love that. Zach Pickens, add to that interior defensive line. Halfback Kenny McIntosh, and then Chris Rodriguez Jr. out of Kentucky. Get a couple running backs. I go 2 running backs pretty often, at least one, but sometimes 2. So I like it. Warren McClendon, we talked about him before, that right tackle out of Georgia. I love taking that pick. And Justin Shorter, getting a late receiver out of Florida. Yeah, Robert, I think this is a really good mock draft. Maybe there's a few players that I like better, than the one you took, but that's just personal preference in terms of the player. Like there might, for example, Zach Pickens, and I need to look at him a little bit more, but there might be some defensive interior linemen that I personally like better. But I like the position, and I like what you do here overall. So I think this is a solid draft. Omar's asking, do you think Cards bring back Wesley? Maybe. And I know that's feels like a cop-out answer. And they like Antoine Wesley, I think, in the building. He's got some intriguing potential. At the same time, he played at Texas Tech with Cliff Kingsbury, and I think that's part of the reason I like here is that the familiarity with Kingsbury's system, and because he's a fit for what they like on the outside, those tall receivers. And will that next offensive play caller, whether it be the head coach or offensive coordinator, want his profile of receiver, or would they rather kind of go in a different direction? He's had some injuries. So I think it's possible that they bring him back. I'd probably say there's a bigger likelihood they don't, though. And just because the new regime, his injury history, I have to wonder if the new coach is going to want to kind of bring in just some different profile of receiver. But we'll see, right? Let's see. So yeah, good mock right here. I like it a lot. Next up, we have Mr. Money Man Manetti. Mr. Money Manette. I asked him how to pronounce it. He said, I don't know. I just typed it out as a joke or something. So I'm calling it Minetti, Mr. Money Minetti. He traded back with the Steelers, moved back a good bit, got a couple future first-round picks, got a first and a second and fourth this year. Then he took their big receiver out of TCU, Quentin Johnston. So that's interesting. So, I sometimes have taken receiver in the first round. If you're trading Hopkins, which I don't think you did here, but if they trade Hopkins, then maybe it's more likely. If they go with an offensive coach like Kafka, it may be even more likely. But I still don't think receiver is where they go in the first round. But he's a big physical receiver, so he's definitely they're obviously at a position that is a premium. So I've gone receiver sometimes there, but I'm that's not typically where I'm going. But I think that's an interesting pick. Kalijah Kancey is a guy really good interior defensive lineman. A little bit on the smaller side, but really tenacious at getting at the quarterback. So he's an intriguing prospect. Jahmyr Gibbs, running back at Alabama, in the second round. That's I like going running back later, but obviously I definitely think this team needs to get a running back. So there you go. DeJuan Jones, Ohio State, we've had him in a couple mocks, so looking at maybe him playing right tackle, which you played. I know you talked about that in Discord that you were a right tackle, right? Then we have Christopher Smith, a safety out of Georgia, in the third round. I definitely like taking safety. I tend to take them a little later because I think if you're going safety on day 2, you're looking for someone who will be a starter. And that's not a position where we need a starter. We need depth. He's a good player, I'm sure, but I'd probably go a little bit later. Jordan P. is saying, Kalijah Kancey is shooting up boards right now. Great pass rusher. Yeah. Drew McWhorter is saying, Quentin Johnston, 6'4", 4.3 speed, track star, 33% contested catch rate. Oof. Yeah. Okay. Maybe you'd like it a little bit better there. Yeah. Then we've got KJ Henry, an edge rusher out of Clemson. So another developmental edge rusher around 4. Q Blue Kelly, cornerback out of Stanford. So we've got cornerback. Then Jertavius Martin, a cornerback out of Illinois. So back-to-back cornerbacks there. Then Ivan Pace Jr. That we talked about before, good linebacker at Cincinnati. Then Chandler Zavala, guard out of North Carolina State. Then cornerback DJ Turner, another developmental cornerback. So, yeah, for me, that's a lot of cornerbacks, but that's me. Maybe a little early on safety, but some good players here. I definitely think you mix it up with that quarterback, which is keeping it interesting, right? So, yeah, this is interesting what you got there. But I like some of those. I like it. It's definitely different. All right, Lance is asking, why are we taking so many edge players? We need a Jordan Davis, Quinn Williams, Amon Sue type up front. Yeah, I think interior defensive line is a bigger need as well. I think a lot of people are taking edge. We don't have that bona fide stud edge rusher. We've got, Marcus Golden, who I love, but who had a really off year. And, it seems like he's on the downside of his career. Then we've got, Myjai Sanders and Cameron Thomas, who showed some potential, but, they were rookies and, they showed potential, but neither one of them you feel like you're certain is that number one pass rusher. So, I think a lot of people feel like what we need to find that bona fide, true number one edge rusher to play outside, and then let Myjai and Cameron Thomas develop to be on the other side. So I usually take one edge rusher, but if I'm taking them, I'm trying to take them on day 1 or 2. I love developing those day 3 edge rushers as in general. But if we're going to get an edge rusher, we need to get one who's more a true number 1, in my opinion. But if I have Jalen Carter and Will Anderson on the board, I'm generally taking Jalen Carter because I like that interior pass rush. If I don't get Jalen Carter in round 1, I'm taking a defensive interior lineman in round 3 typically, and sometimes round 2. And there are a lot of good interior defensive linemen on day 2. I've said this before. There's at least half a dozen that I really like in rounds 2 or 3. So I don't mind waiting for those interior defensive linemen until round 3. And in fact, I don't even mind double dipping with 2 interior defensive linemen there in round 3 because there's so many good ones. Guys like Kalijah Kancey, Keanu Benton, and other guys. So, this team needs a number 1 edge rusher. Whether one of our rookies develops or we draft a top tier one. I think that is a position they need to figure out, but we also need that interior. So, okay. So overall, interesting draft. Let's get to the next one though. Gazornik. We have Brian's draft. All right. He traded back with the Seahawks, picked up a couple first round picks, 5 and 20. So he took Will Anderson Jr., number 5. That's, getting that outcome, trading back a couple of spots and still getting Will Anderson is a major coup. That would be a huge win. Then he's got Joey Porter Jr., one of the better cornerbacks with that pick at number 20. I like that. I think that is a good pick there. And then, of course,
got John Michael, he's our center Schmitz.
Got JMS at pick 34. Then went with receiver Jalen Hyatt there in round 3. Steve Avila, guard in round 3. Then went Kendry Miller, a running back I really like there in round 4. Connor Galvin, tackle that from Baylor in round 5. They can maybe develop into a swing tackle or right tackle. Ronnie Bell, who you didn't know I was going to profile, but receiver, obviously I like him. We talked about them. Warren McClendon, I've talked about him a lot. And then Jared Clark, the interior defensive lineman out of Coastal Carolina. I think this is a great mock. I love, the trade back, but still getting the blue chipper, addressing all the positions we talk about these Cardinals need, getting a running back in there. You went 2 receivers, which is interesting, but I would go. For me, I'm probably going 1, but I don't hate that. I mean, we'll eventually need more. I just think there's maybe other positions I'd be going to, rather than a second receiver, but I'm maybe quibbling here, right? But yeah, I think this is a really good draft. PFF gave it an A-, and Brian, I give this an A+. Good job. Russ is commenting on his mock draft. The reason for 2 quality centers and a great fullback is because I desperately want the Cardinals to build trench warfare. I want interior line and strong depth. That would help our fragile quarterback. Yeah, I mean, I hear that. For me, though, like, if one of those guys is on the bench, I'd rather have used another pick on a guy who started. Build the trenches, right? But don't take – for me, it's don't take 1 center and then a guard, not 2 centers. And if you're going to take a couple guards and take a tackle, that's for me. That's my take. But I agree with building the trenches. We need to protect our quarterback, build a running game, and I tell you what, like with the players we have on offense returning, if we bring back all the players that are still under contract, right? We'll cut Robbie Anderson, but if we bring back, if Hopkins is back, if Hollywood Brown is back, if we bring back Dortch, if we have our tight ends, we add a running back on day 3, fix the offensive line. I think that's all you need to do for this offense for now. Like fixing the offensive line and just bringing back the guys we have. I'm not saying that's like a Super Bowl team right away, but like do that. Fix the offensive line, just bring back the guys we got, and then fix that defense. And then next year, maybe you bring in address the offense a little more. But like if you can fix the offensive line, we have good enough players to have a decent offense if you can fix that offensive line and build that defense. And then once you got that defense going, then upgrade the offense. So I definitely agree. Fix the trenches. I just would approach it differently, right? But yeah. But overall, I like the philosophy of fixing the trenches, no doubt. Grade D for JMS. They're all crazy. Listen, the letter grades on the PFF stuff, I don't love their letter grades. I don't really pay a lot of attention to that, but I do like their process. In fact, and I forgot, Lance asked this question earlier. I missed that. I forgot to mention that. Joe, I see you use PFF this year. Is that the preference again? I remember last year we thought the mock simulator was more accurate. Thoughts. So here's what I'll tell you. I am fine with any mock draft simulator you want to use as long as it has a good kind of print or good mock draft that it provides at the end like this, right? I use PFF because I like the functionality, but I do not have any sort of preference or expectation. You use whichever one you like, and that's fine by me. Again, I use PFF. I like the way it looks. I like the functionality, but whichever one you want to use is fine by me. Okay. Rashad Paines he's got a little bit of a trade list later in the draft that he mentions here, just moving around a little bit on day 3. All right. So Rashad has Will Anderson at edge at number 3. I like that. Keyshawn Boot, who Drew's mentioning, and I've looked at that. And that's baffling to me. They don't they don't have Keyshawn Boot as their option. Or they don't have it on their in their prospect list. I'm not sure why. So that's kind of weird. But yeah. But Rashad Payne's take him. He's a receiver out of LSU, and if you know Rashad, you know he loves his LSU. Darnell Wright, probably the best right tackle in this draft. Yeah, him at pick 66. I like that. Luke Whippler, you've addressed the center position. You got Ricky Stromberg, who I think I believe he's also a center. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you're going to move him to guard. I don't know. Ali Gale, wow, another LSU prospect. Go figure, Rashad. So edge rusher out of LSU. Israel Abanikanda, halfback out of Pittsburgh. Moro Ojomo, defensive line out of Texas, going late. Now PFF's on PFF stuff, he goes earlier, but I like that. If you can get him that late, that's great. Then a quarterback, Darius Rush, later as well. I like it, right? Got the premier edge rusher. You got a receiver. I'm going receiver later, but hey, I don't hate that. Get a really good right tackle. Get a center. Get a couple, get some help on the defensive line. Get a halfback. Yeah, I think this is a good draft, right? Awesome. All right. Next up is Breadstick Daddy. That's Austin who's hanging out with us. So he's got a trade in there where it looks like he traded back a little bit there on day 2, but he's got Will Anderson, of course, great pick there. And then, of course,
got John Michael, he's our center Schmitz.
And then he's got the tackle DeJuan Jones, who's been in a lot of mock drafts. So I'm guessing he's probably going to be the starting right tackle if we take him there. Andrew Voorhees, guard, love that, out of USC, one of the better guards, right? Byron Young, defensive interior lineman out of Alabama, again, helping to shore up that interior defensive line. Eric Gray, halfback out of Oklahoma, getting that running back in there. Ollie Gale, who's been on a lot of mock drafts, so we've got another developmental edge rusher in there. Ronnie Bell, we talked about him right throughout. Got that receiver, like that. Justin Short, another receiver. And then going cornerback late with Darrell Luter Jr., so out of South Alabama. Okay, I like it. I usually go cornerback earlier, but I think, if you're bringing back Murphy and Hamilton, and you've got Marco Wilson developing, I could see, you can get away without taking a cornerback if you're bringing all those guys back, if you believe Marco Wilson is going to continue to develop. And I like getting a cornerback though still, but yeah, I think I'm splitting hairs here, but I think overall this is a good mock. Drew likes it, right? That's a killer mock. So Drew is a fan of this one. Bub likes the jingle. Yeah. Bob, just wait till you hear the theme song. If you missed it, I've got a new theme song that we're going to play on our way out here. So, yeah, I think this is a good draft, Austin. I think overall really good. Just a few minor things with that cornerback, but even that's just me nitpicking, right? Jordan, I think you said this earlier. If we're looking for a starting right tackle in the draft, I would trade DJ for picks. I floated that on Twitter a while back, and some people kind of, disagreed, but not that I'm all about trading DJ Humphries, but my kind of thing is well, if we do trade away DeAndre Hopkins and we're doing a reset, right? And we're trying to kind of build with a younger roster, do we trade away DJ Humphries? Yeah, there's some dead cap money. You're not trading that to make a ton of cap space. They just signed an extension. The reason you would trade DJ Humphries is to get some draft capital back and clear a path for the younger player, Josh Jones, to start, right? And then build with a younger team. So I think that, I wouldn't hate that. Because again, one of the things I feel like is Josh Jones has shown that he's a starting level tackle. I still think DJ Humphries' upside might be a little higher. He was a number 4 overall. He graded as number 4 tackle a few years ago, but he hasn't been as consistent at that. But Humphries is older. Josh Jones is younger. He's on his rookie deal still. And the one thing I just don't want to see is that Josh Jones, what we get out of him is a half a year as a starter. Then he goes back to being a backup. And then he walks and goes somewhere else and becomes a good starting tackle. I would rather, like, if that's what it is, I'd rather, like, let's trade Humphreys, get some draft capital, get some younger players in here, and sign Josh Jones to an extension, have a younger left tackle who's a starting left tackle, and then build, and part of that reset. I'm not saying I'm all about trading Humphreys, but I don't hate that, right? If you're gonna draft a starting right tackle, commit to Josh Jones, trade DJ, get some picks to help build the roster. I don't think that's that bad of an idea, really. I mean, I'd be up for that. Grandmaster, you're asking a question. Someone asks us, can viewers send you mock draft via Facebook or email if they don't have Twitter? So, okay, so here's the hierarchy of preference. My first preference is that you send the mock on Twitter. And part of the reason I want you to do that, to be honest, it helps people to see what we're doing, if that makes sense. It helps get the word out, because when you tag me on it and maybe people follow you, see, oh, what's this? So my first preference is tag it on Twitter. My second preference is you can post it in the Discord. So if you're in our Discord, or if you're not, join the Discord. It's a great community. You can message me in Discord with it or post it in there. But if you don't do Twitter, don't do Discord, and you're not willing to do any of them, you can email it to me. My email address, if you go to the YouTube channel, there's a place on the About section where you can see the email address. So I will accept them that way. I had one person submit one that way this time. So, but my first preference is Twitter, second preference Discord, and if those can't work for you, then go do the email. Yeah. Jordan P. So yeah, can't let Josh Jones leave. Played as well, as younger and cheaper. So so you kind of look at it the same way I do. Lansing gonna do a mock draft tonight. Hit the sack tonight, Cardinals fans. Thanks for being here. Appreciate you. Then Drew McWhorter. Joe, any thoughts that DJ could kick inside a guard, keep him on the left? He's always been a better run blocker in the past, pro at least slightly. That would be nasty left side if he could learn guard. I mean, you could try that, that happens. I think he is a starting left tackle in the NFL. Maybe he's not like a top, at his best he can play as a top 5. He did 1 year, but maybe that's not who he is permanently. But he is a starting left tackle, so you could try. You could do it and try it. It just almost seems like a shame, and he might not be too keen on that. I mean, I guess he may not have much of a choice while he's under contract, but you could try it. I mean, it would, could be nasty, but I would, man, if it's me, I don't want to mess around with that too much. I feel like we've messed around with that a little too much with Josh Jones. We've played too many players out of position for too long. So if it's me, I don't want to try that. Could it work? Yeah. I mean, it's worked before for players, right? But, yeah. All right. So good draft, Austin. I like it. And yourself, Eric Gray is a fun prospect to mock. He seems like he'll be a mid-round steal. Yeah. I mean, good running back out of Oklahoma, right? Jordan saying if Hop gets traded, personally, I'd trade Ertz and DJ. I have to wonder. And I don't know. I don't wonder what Ertz's trade value is right now. I mean, I hate to say it. I love him as a player, but they signed an extension, so it's not like he's on. It's on the deal. I don't know who's going to want to trade for him, especially coming back from an injury at his age. So I just don't know how much we'd get for him if it's worth it. Maybe I'm wrong there. But DJ, yeah, I see that. Okay. Then we have Chad Ireland. You were in here earlier, so okay. You were in here earlier from Australia. Appreciate you being here. You mentioned that you had a tackle in this one, trying to mix it up, right? Okay. So you've got Will Anderson, number 3 overall. Like that, obviously, a lot. And then
We've got John Michael. He's our center Schmitz.
And then, of course, you've got to trade for Hopkins. You trade Hopkins to the Chiefs. And you got Schmitz in the first round, which I think is where he's probably going. I think he's going to kind of end up going. So I think there we go. I feel like that's realistic. Then got Ringo in round 2. Jordan P saying, not a huge Ringo fan, but he's here at 34. You already have JMS. Why not? I agree, right? I'll get that in second round. DeJuan Jones, we talked about that there. Got that tackle on the 3rd round. So again, maybe look at him at the right tackle. Xavier Hutchinson, receiver, round 3. I like getting receivers there on, a little bit later, like we've talked about. Byron Young, defensive interior lineman. I like that. Kenny McIntosh, we love that. DeMarco Hallams. and then Jake Moody, the kicker. I think this is a solid draft, right? Got the elite edge rusher, got the center we need, got a cornerback, got a tackle, hit the inside of defensive line, got that that safety, got that running back. I like it. Chad's saying, think JMS goes early too. Yeah. I mean, listen, he crushed it at the Senior Bowl, right? So I think you are right there. So yeah, a couple comments. We got Tree Nugs 117. Keep Ertz, yeah, right. I like to keep him around for sure, right? David Jones saying Ertz at Jacksonville, Ingram will leave and Arnold not the guy. I mean, I just don't know. I think Jacksonville. Yeah, I mean Ingram had a good year for them. Who knows? Maybe he tries to cash in on that. I think if you're Jacksonville, you've got a young core, though. I think you might try to build with more young. I don't know. I mean, I'm just not sure that there's going to be much of a market. Who knows, right? Well, they might if they try. So we'll see, right? Chad saying about his draft, would have liked to look at guard as well, but didn't want to get too crazy. Okay, yeah. Right, there you go. Jordan says Ertz is a cap casualty, to be honest, just being real. I mean, I think sadly that's probably the more likely thing. Recovering from an injury, I just don't know that anyone is gonna trade for him. But anyway, yeah. All right. So I think but Chad, this is a solid mock. I like it. I mean, I think you did a really good job. Again, you understand the positions we need. You're hitting them in the right spots in terms of position, or where you're hitting them in the draft. So I like that a lot. Aramis Sports, someone I follow on Twitter who has a blog that does a good job. He talks football, but also talks a lot of other sports. So he has Will Anderson in the first round at number 3. We're seeing that obviously a lot tonight. And then
it's got John Michael, he's our center Schmitz.
We've got JMS at 34. Then we've got Keanu Benton. We've talked about him, a player we really like. Love getting that interior defensive lineman in round 3. Andrew Voorhees, a guard in round 3, so a potential starter there. Then another interior defensive lineman. I like that. I like taking 2 of those guys. Cornerback DJ Turner, a little bit later in the draft, but got a nice guy of potential there. Kenny McIntosh, talked about him a lot. Warren McClendon, like that. DeMarco Hallams. This is a solid draft. I like it. Jordan P., great top 4 picks in this one. I like this across the board. Maybe I go cornerback a little earlier, but I don't mind going one later. I like pretty much every player on here. I like where you took them. Yep. I think this is a very, very good mock draft. Nicely done, Aramis. Simon is asking, do you think there are any late first-round teams that actually need a center and would take steal JMS? Yeah, I think the Bengals, they have a guy that the free agent, I think it was a guy that I really liked. His name escapes me. He was former Patriot and Dolphin that they took there. But I think they could look for an upgrade there with the Bengals, and there might be a few other teams that I'm missing. But yeah, I think so. I could absolutely see it happen, right? Yes. But yeah, this is an excellent draft. I think you really nailed it there, Aramis. Good job. Decimus, who I know was in the chat earlier, someone who regularly comments on my videos, and I know from our conversations, in the chat there, he in the comment section, he loves the offensive line, fixing the offensive line in the trenches. So it's not surprising glancing at this to see multiple offensive line players, which I think, listen, that's where they need to address it, right? So he got Jalen Carter in the first round. Jalen Carter ends up being gone in a lot of when we pick at 3 for a lot of them, but he was there for him, so he grabbed him. Love it. Keely Ringo at 34. We've talked about them before. Great pick. Luke Whippler getting the center. Love it. Rashawn Johnson. We talked about him last week. Love him. Somewhere in the middle rounds there. Andrew Voorhees, another potential starting caliber guard, fell to the 4th round for you there. Love it. Connor Galvin. You got him in the 5th round. Maybe he's a swing tackle for you. Maybe he's a right tackle, but I like taking a tackle somewhere in that range. Then you went with a quarterback on day 3. Again, trying to replicate the Brock Purdy kind of thing, getting that day 3 guy to develop and such as a backup for you. You've got Javian Cohen, guard out of Alabama. Again, like I always say, if you later in the draft, if you're looking for a guy with physical traits, look at Alabama. They get those guys, coming into the program. And then again, same thing, DJ Dale, defensive interior lineman. Decimus is true to form here, attacking, building those trenches. And yeah, I like it. I mean, I think this is an outstanding draft. For me, this is again, me nitpicking. I'm not taking a quarterback this year typically, and it's not because I don't like the idea of taking a day 3 quarterback. For me, I think, and I had a conversation on Twitter about this with someone, the roster situation in 2023 gets to be a little dicey with the quarterback situation if you draft a guy. And here's what I mean. Like, okay, Kyler's going to be out for the first, however many games, right? We don't know how long he's going to be out, 3 games, 4 games, the whole season. It's uncertain, right? So you're going to need to bring in a veteran who's like a, kind of your bridge, stopgap, kind of bridge quarterback. Someone I keep talking about, Jacoby Brissett, to me seems like the obvious fit. You bring in someone like Jacoby Brissett. Well, if you're in that situation, you probably want a backup behind him who also has experience, because if, he gets injured or whatever, is Colt McCoy going to be back? Maybe. If not, you probably get another guy who's like that. And then that fourth quarterback, or really, you're going to have your third quarterback while Kyler is out, to me probably should be more like a David Blau type of guy who, when Kyler's back and you have to cut that guy because he's now the fourth quarterback and try to get him on the practice squad, you're not as worried about losing him. And if you're drafting a quarterback, you don't want to lose him. So it gets to be a little weird, because when Kyler comes back, all of a sudden you got 4 quarterbacks. Who are you cutting? Right? Who are you exposing to waivers and, the practice, to try to get on the practice squad? So for me, I'm going a couple of veteran journeymen this year, and maybe a guy like David Blau as that third quarterback. And then in 2024, I don't mind taking a quarterback on day 3 to do the Brock Purdy thing. But that is me, so we'll see, right? Now, this is interesting. Dino's saying this, and there has been some discussion about this, right? NFL may add an extra quarterback slot, not count against it's actually 53-man roster, not a bad idea to draft one. But listen, if the NFL, I don't think they're going to make that rule this year, but I could be wrong. I feel like, but if they were to have a situation, which I think is a great idea, I think they need to have some sort of contingency for a quarterback who, and also that third quarterback, emergency quarterback, who doesn't count against the roster and also doesn't count against your active players. But that's a whole other conversation, right? Real quick, that's exactly what I was talking about. The center for the Bengals, Ted Karras. Thank you, Grandizer. So I think the Bengals might look at a center because that's who they had. I think they might want to build on him, right? So anyway, okay. Jordan P likes Rashawn Johnson, A+. I know he's a fan of him, right? Right. Yeah. Drew McWhorter. Only way Rashawn Johnson third is a D+ is if Robinson and Gibbs are still on the board. A+ for sure. Right. Yeah. All right. But Decimus, I like it. I think you did a good job building those trenches. Overall, really good draft. Like this a lot. Erva8 on Twitter submitted this. He's got Will Anderson, number 3 overall. Keely Ringo, we're seeing a lot of that combination, right? And then he's got a trade back, and of course,
he's got John Michael, he's our Sander Schmitz.
All right. In fact, actually, you know what? I think we've seen this draft before. This is, okay, so I've got you on here twice. I'm going to go back here and find it, just because you sent me a message and said I wasn't sure if I sent it to you. And I'm like, well, okay, let me add it. And I'm going to find it. Is this? Nope, this isn't it. I know. Bear with me, everyone, right? Who was it? Moore's Legacy. Is that you? Okay. There we go. The same mock draft. So, yes, you did send it. Okay. So, there we go, right? But, okay. So, now I know that's you. Okay. So, what's the name? That is Habakkuk Baldonado. He's asking, what's the name of the guy from Pittsburgh? I only know that because Habakkuk is a book in the Bible, the Old Testament. Habakkuk Baldonado. So I can pronounce that one from years ago. All right. So there we go. We've already seen this one. So actually, we don't have to kind of continue showing that one. All right. We've already gone over. Okay. Whew. This has been another one of our 2-hour marathons, right? but a lot of good fun, a lot of great mock drafts, a lot of interesting picks. Like it was said earlier, we're gonna have a better idea once we know who the coach is, and I don't know if we'll know this time next week, but in 2 weeks we should know. So that's going to hopefully help us have some more insights. But this has been a lot of fun, everyone. Thank you for submitting your mock drafts. Make sure you submit them, again for next week. And I've got a guest lined up for next week, someone that has not been on the show before. So that should be a lot of fun. Mikey, thank you. Great show. Appreciate you guys being here. So what I'm going to do on my way out, if you missed the beginning, there is a new theme song. Van, thanks for being here. Zaza. I've got a new Mock Draft Monday theme song that Mikey, Desert Cardinal there, wrote the lyrics to, and a good friend of mine named Doug recorded it. And it's got a awesome extended guitar solo at the end that my friend Doug recorded. So I am going to, on my way out, I am going to put up the channel member shout outs. And if you're a person who's with us all the time and you want to help support the channel to help me continue to build what I'm doing and invest in kind of what we're doing here, consider becoming a channel member. There's some folks who've been in the chat, who are channel members. It's if you want to support financially monthly to just help kind of with what I'm building, consider doing that. No pressure, but it's certainly appreciated. So check out the channel member thing, and then I do the shout out here. So I'm going to put the channel member thing up, or the shout outs, and then I'm going to play the new theme song in its full version if you missed it. So again, thank you everyone for being here. Thank you for all your support, for being part of this community. We're going to get the channel membership shout out here and then the theme song. Peace.